Welcome to Concert Ideas' first foray into the world of online teaching. In this session, we're going to look at the ins and outs of the production involved with a major concert event on a college campus. As we follow along with the video you're about to see, you'll see that this concert was a fairly massive venture that is atypical of most college concerts. The key to remember, though, is that the premise for all concerts is the same. Producing them is time and labor intensive, and it's not something that one or two people can do themselves and be successful, not to mention stay sane. So we're going to watch this video of a Kanye West show we did a few years ago. It's a much bigger show than a lot of schools do, but again, this all works to scale, so it's a good example. Load-in usually begins either the night before the show or early the morning of. And oftentimes the first step is covering the floor, especially if you're in a gym. The grounds crew or operations people will want to cover the floor. In this instance, it's a two-tier covering. You see there's a tarp going down first, and then they put a layer of plywood over the floor. They use multiple crews to cover the floor, which is important to note since this lessens the strain on any one group. And this is a theme that you'll see come up throughout the concert production process. The more people you have on hand, the easier it will be to complete load-in, to complete production in general. You see they start to build the stage here. Most stages are built directly on the location that it will stay. In other words, they're going to build the stage where the stage is supposed to be. In this case, the artist provided the stage and it was a moving stage, so they built it and then they moved it into place. If you look at this photo, this is a photo of a stage that was built exactly where it will end up. As you can see, looking at the rafters and the beams, all of the sound and lighting for this show is being hung from the ceiling. This is called flying, as opposed to stacking it on the ground, which would be ground stacking. If you're in a theater, there may be infrastructure already in place to fly. If you're in a gym or your arena, you'll likely have two ways to fly the equipment. You can dead hang, which you can see in this photo, in which there's one single point from the beams where they hang the equipment from, or bridling, which you can see in this photo, where there are 2 points on the beam that they use to create one point to hang, and this distributes the weight between two or more beams. For this show, there are multiple bridles in place, as you see up here. Key thing to remember is that if you fly in your building, all of this hanging must be done by a certified professional. You bring in riggers and they do all the hanging themselves. As the process continues along, you'll see that the sound and lighting equipment arrives in the venue as being built in preparation to be flown. There's also a video wall, which we're starting to see more with artists that are carrying their own production. Most shows typically won't have this. Also with this production, the artist is using a line array PA. You can see in this photo, this is your typical line array being hung from the ceiling. These are fairly typical these days. It's the most requested type and most commonly used type of PA that you'll see. After all the production is flown, including the line arrays that you see here in the video, you'll see that chairs are being placed on the floor. Now, given the size of this venue, it was a good idea for this show, but it is not something that we usually recommend. If you do indeed put chairs on the floor, you must make sure that they're properly secured together so you prevent any chairs from being picked up or thrown or damaged. This is very important and one of the main reasons that bands do not like chairs to be on the floor. If you look at this picture taken during a sound check before the doors were open, you'll see that the floor is open. With this load-in, there were multiple semi-trucks full of gear that the production company brought with them. Your typical show will have one or two semis full of gear. Either the production company will bring it, or if the artist is carrying production, the artist will bring all of the gear. Either way, you need to be aware of your load-in access and make notes of how far the push is to the stage. Are there any obstructions that would make it difficult to get gear to the stage? Are there any steep inclines you have to worry about? Do they have to bring the gear up any stairs to get it into the room? And how many trucks you can unload at once if you have multiple trucks. Take a look at this photo. We're looking at the back of a stage. On the other side of the stage is a field where all the concert attendees will be, and all the gear had to be pushed up this sidewalk to get to the stage. So you want to alert your production company or the artist, whoever's bringing all the gear, as to what obstacles are going to be in their way. You want to let them know they're going to have to push it up this sidewalk. You're going to want to let them know to be prepared to carry all the gear up a flight of stairs or down a ramp or across a loading dock or whatever you have particular to your venue. As the show's been winding down, you've been seeing multiple crews work on breaking down and loading out all of the gear. Loadout begins immediately after the show ends, so you want to make sure any volunteers or crew know that they have to be ready to get to work right away at the end of the show. The ending time for this loadout was 3 a.m. Smaller shows will typically end a little bit earlier, but it just goes to show what a lengthy and exhausting process production can be.